Welcome to the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast, your guide to understanding how to get out of the Wall Street rat race and start your own mailbox money lifestyle. Now, don't let these handsome Southern draws fool you. These financial minds are teaching our country to enhance savings, increase cash flow, and create passive income, all without the help of Wall Street. Are you ready to break through? Now here are your hosts, Russ Morgan and Joey Murray.
Welcome into the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Russ, you're on. Easy E is on with us today.
Back in the house, back in black. Welcome.
I'm in the studio today.
Wait, actually, not back in black. You're back in gray.
I'm wearing blue, Russ.
Yeah, we got to work on the color coordination here.
These pants are not blue.
They are 100% blue.
Give them navy.
Come on, man.
You guys are terrible. All right, so I guess I'm going to have to use my imagination in order to figure out that his pants are blue.
Okay.
But that's a teaser for today's episode because, man, I'm so excited of what we're going to get into today. We're expanding our mind, and we're going to get into, I don't want to say pretend mode because really I want us to envision it happening. But sometimes whenever we're in imagination, we are sort of pretending. But I got a great story. My oldest daughter, Alexandria, swims, and I spent the whole weekend with her in Atlanta. It was just she and I, and it was a great event. She did excellent. There's one thing that she just will help her go over the mark, and that is in diving. Like, she is just not excelled in that part. She's
not diving like off of a diving board. You're talking about getting started.
Yeah. So if you ever seen like swimmers, they're on these blocks that are about 3 foot off the ground, and they have to, the horn goes off and they launch, right?
Right.
Well, she hears the horn, delay, 1 second, jumps in the water, but more kind of at a 45-degree angle down. She's not really reaching out. Well, clearly it's faster to fly through the air than it is to go through the water. I've told her 100 times, Zan, just jump out there as far as you can. Well, last night she had like a little small summer meet, right? So it's fun, because you got like 6-year-olds all the way through 18-year-olds there, and I'm having fun high-fiving them. She's in my lane. Well, we had some technology difficulties early on, and so the meet went late into the night. So it's 8:45. It is dark, and they're out there swimming their last couple of heats. And all the swimmers only have tinted goggles.
Yeah.
And so they're all going, we can't see anything. It's just pitch black. Well, she comes up to my lane. I'm a timer in her lane. And she's like, Dad, I can't see. I said, don't worry about that. What I want you to focus on, I want you to get on that block, and I want you to launch off this thing. I want you to jump as far as you can out there. And I want you to go as soon as that horn goes off. Well, I've told her this, and, of course, I'm always optimistic she's going to do it. But she gets up there, and the horn goes off, and her feet come off the block. I mean, she's like, Michael Phelps off that thing. But even better, man, she was soaring across the air like I've never seen her before. Like, she jumped out there so far. And I'm like inside going, that was awesome.
Wow. Finally.
But even better, Ernie, her coach who's sitting over there, he starts yelling, what? That's so awesome. Where was that in Atlanta? I mean, and he's yelling at her the whole time she's swimming in the thing. Like, if you would have done that in Atlanta, you would have been, blah, blah, blah. And I was just thinking like, oh my goodness, like, what did she do? And so I'm talking to her this morning as I was taking her to practice. And she's like, I don't really know what I did differently. I couldn't see anything. You told me to jump as far as I could, so that's what I did. And it hit me, I said, from now on, what I want you to do is when you get on the blocks, I want you to close your eyes. Because when our eyes are open, we get distracted, right? I mean, how many times are we distracted in our day by our cell phone buzzing?
Oh, gosh.
Or seeing a text? Or seeing an email come up on our computer? And we all know how that distracts us, that takes us away. It's bad in our time management. I said, close your eyes when you get up on there going forward. I just want you to imagine what it's going to look like when you're reaching out as far as you can. And you're going to be able to take action quicker because your senses are only focused on what you're hearing and not also what you're seeing. And that leads us into today's talk, which is on expanding our mind. And Joey, I mean, you're the one that pointed this book out to me, and I've been, excited for us to go through this.
Yeah, just a shout out, first of all, to Jason Lowe, our good friend from Canada, who told us about this book. This is Dan Sullivan, who's the strategic coach, founder and main coach there. This book is called The 10X Mind Expander. And I mean, I just, again, took his recommendation, bought the book, and it's probably one of the easier reads. I mean, it's only like 50 or 60 pages, but it's also big print and there's some pictures and stuff like this. I mean, you can pretty much read it in like an hour. I'll just tell you right out of the gate, I mean, it aligns so much with what we talk about every day with our clients. People we're working with, they want to expand their business. They want to grow. They want to have a greater impact ultimately. And I mean, Russ, you and I were even meeting yesterday thinking about these things and saying, we've got essentially the answer or the prescription to people's financial cancer, right?
Yeah,
the solution.
absolutely.
And we want to impact. I mean, we can meet with people face to face all day long, but we want to expand even greater than that. We want to be able to tell a much bigger audience. That's the reason we do a podcast. That's the reason we want to speak across the country and things like this. Isn't that what we're all about?
If you're stuck in the same place, you're going to feel limited. And when I read this book, and you said it's an hour read, and I agree because I actually was flying to South Dakota the other day, and I was reading it on my trip between here and Chicago, and I felt myself going through what he asked. I mean, he asked some really strategic questions in there. And one of the things it says is, if you're really dissatisfied or you feel like you want to grow to a new level, that there's more that you can provide to this world than what you're providing, imagine what it's going to look like. What are you doing when you're there? And when we think of what keeps us, I mean, what I've heard the old adage, the enemy of great is good.
Right.
Is that when we feel satisfied with certain levels.
Enough mindset is what he talks about in the book.
Yeah. And I mean,
like, when is there ever enough?
Right. And it's not about like having more for the sake of like storing up, right? That's not the purpose. But like you said, I mean, why we get on this podcast is because we feel like we have a solution that needs to be shared. And we have enough people to talk to, right? There's that word enough. We have enough people that we can go see just in our circle and talk to them about this. But there's people all over the U.S. and the world that we're finding to listen to this podcast that we wouldn't have been able to reach without doing this. So they wouldn't have the benefit of seeing this.
Right. Ernie, I have a question for you. You have not read this book yet, right?
I have not. Quickly skimmed.
Okay. So I want to ask you this because this will be kind of raw here. When I first read this, I had a response. So when you hear the word 10X, right? 10 times thinking, and he says, hey, you should always be thinking 10 times. Your revenue, your life, like all these things. When that first hits you, what is your first thought?
I think when you say 10X, so I do know enough about the book to think 2X, but I think we might be tempted when we think 10X to actually only be thinking 2X because twice as much seems like a lot.
Yeah, right. So you start thinking, in order for me to grow, I have to do twice as much.
That's right.
And that's not appealing to me at all.
No. I mean, haven't worked twice as many hours?
No, already. We had an episode, I don't know, 10 or so ago that was on like balancing life. And one of the main keys to that whole podcast was how can we spend more time with family, not less, right? I mean, that's one of my prayer requests on a weekly basis is that I will be more present with my family and I'll quit working.
Right. So if someone said, you need to be thinking like you should be making 10 times more than what you're making today, how does that land with you, Ern?
Doing twice as much work is intimidating. The thought of trying to do 10 times as much work.
It's brutal, right?
But in that mindset, I think that's the default thought.
Yeah. And the thing I want to add about that he adds such a great way of doing this, a way of getting yourself to that point. One thing he pointed to that immediately got my attention in the book is he said, it's so hard to imagine thinking 10 times what you're at today. But he says, if many of you will stop and look backwards at where you've come from, many of you have already 10x'd your income or your lifestyle or whatever it might be from years ago.
I think of that personally. I remember, Ernie, so the second year I'm in the financial business, right? This is 2005. My wife is in dental school. We just have Alexandria, who I was just speaking of. She was born in 2005. And this is a second year. I'm starting probably July, August, something like that. And I got a chance to look at my tax return years later. And I look at the tax return for 2005. You want to know how much money I made that year? $17,292.
Wow.
I mean, I was stacking dollar bills. I mean, we didn't even know what to do with all that money.
Actual
so many
dollar
quarters. So many quarters stacked up.
Well, I mean, it's crazy, but you look back and you say 10x. You say 10x. Well, yeah, I've 10x that.
Right. When he mentioned that, it was like my mind opened up. So this whole idea of expanding 10x mind expander, immediately I'm thinking, this is possible, right? I mean, that was like my initial reaction to that thought. And then to your point, Ernie, we immediately go to, I got to work harder. I got to work harder. I work harder. He says, it's so much easier to 10x than it is to 2x. How does that land?
Well, I do think, Russ, there's probably no way you're doing 10 times the amount of work that you were doing in 2005.
I don't know about that. I mean, I was playing a lot of golf. There was a lot more free time. There wasn't nearly as many people to see. But yeah, I mean, clearly I'm not doing the same jobs that I was doing then.
So I want to add some flesh to the whole 2x thing. He says it's easier to go 10x than it is 2x because it no longer has to do with you, right? In order to do 10 times the revenue or whatever that you're used to, you immediately have to think much bigger than yourself. There's no way possible to work 10 times as many hours, right? You can't continue to do the same things you're doing. So you have to think much bigger. Your team becomes that much more important. All these things, like that was just dynamic.
Well, yeah, one of the things he says is imagine what are the things that you're doing? What are the activities that you're doing more of at that point? How big is your company? What have you delegated to your team? How have your relationships changed? What are the new technologies that you're using? And what new networks do you have in place? Those are the things that is going to allow you to be 10x. A lot of us, hopefully all of us, have 10x that point in a handful of years in our work. But it's even more to think of this of where we are now. Very successful in our business, been doing this for almost 15 years. And to think of 10xing from today, from an already superly, I mean, I'm trying to be humble in this, but I mean, we are blessed,
right?
Really blessed. I mean, we're at a point where we've exceeded last year in the first 5 months. And, it is challenging to me to say 10x that.
Well, but that's why I was mentioning that whole piece that he gives you almost the confidence by looking back, right? Because otherwise you're just like kind of stuck. You're like, oh, I've got this lid. I think I shared you this story the other day, Russ. Like I remember specifically when I was in the mortgage business, it was within the first couple years, 3 years, I went to work for a new company and we moved into a new space and they had all these cubicles out there. I remember being with my manager and he was like, it's really a random moment, but he was kind of put his arm around me. We were looking down in the new space and he's like, Joey, you see all those cubicles? He's like, those are worth $100,000 a piece. And I remember I had not made $100,000 by then. And I was thinking, that's interesting. Like he's so confident that like those things are like every loan officer that's in those cubicles should be $100,000. I looked at him, I said, are you serious? He's like, if you're not making $100,000 in the next year or two, we're doing something wrong. And I remember it was almost like that lid mentally, like in my brain, I was like, that should be the minimum. What am I thinking? And that's kind of what I got from reading this book. It's like, wow, yeah, of course we should 10x. We should be growing. If we're not growing, we're shrinking.
Well, you can't have this fear mindset that you can't get there. I mean,
scarcity.
And here's one of the things as I was reading this book, I got resonated with one and two knew that I had to overcome. And that is the fear of leaving what I'm doing. There's things in my job that I just enjoy doing. And I don't mean like just talking to people, but there's some things that like I'm controlling. Ernie's over there like shaking his head. Yes, you are. But there's things that I really enjoy doing, but I don't need to be the one to do them. One, I'm not the most capable person to do them.
Right.
And two, they're not my unique ability.
Okay, talk about that, because that was a big theme throughout this book. And I think it's something that most of us haven't really stopped to think about.
Well, if you sit down and you say, what is my unique ability? What is the one thing that I excel in doing and I am one of the best people to be doing it?
Think about only I can do this, right?
But in my life, I look back over my childhood through my adult working years. What is the one thing that I've been really good at? And it's motivating people. It's influencing people. It's helping people. I mean, whether it was getting somebody to do my schoolwork when I was in high school or college, I'm not proud of that any longer. I used to be. That was a badge of honor back in those days. Or when I was waiting tables, getting people to help me do, bring stuff to people and multitasking, to the point of just being able to, motivate my children at this point.
Sure.
And to have conversations with people. I mean, to help them see things that they haven't seen. That's something that I feel like that is my unique ability. But I mean, I'm not great at some other tasks that I just enjoy doing because I love to see things to completion. I love to see how things fit. I used to love cutting my grass, and I'd look out the window all the time and I'd say, man, look at that. That's a good looking yard. And I like 5 minutes later, I'd be back at that window. I'd be looking back out. I'd be going, that's good. But here's the thing is that there's people that need to be cutting my grass, and I've now delegated that task. And you know what? I love showing up and going, that's a good looking yard. And even better that I didn't have to do it anymore.
Actually, better than when you were doing it.
Oh my goodness.
Are you willing to say that?
It really is better than I could do it. I mean, there's some things that I've delegated in my life, like painting. I've seen painters and they're all like terrible. And I'm like, I could have done a better job in that. The thing is that they did it in a partial of the time that I would have done it. And what I was able to do in that other time, the value proposition that I can bring to the world is not in that. And so I think that we have to figure out what our unique ability is. So there is fear, though, of saying, if we were going to 10X our business, which is what you and I sat down and planned for yesterday, just because we want to figure out how we can expand and reach 10 times the amount of people we're reaching today, I know that I can't be talking to every single person.
That's right.
And there's fear in that to me. I feel like I'm great at that. I think that's something I'm good at. But at the same time, I have to move to a different role. I have to be able to be in a different position. I have to bring and teach people how to do the things that I'm doing.
Right. I think just for me, it was helpful to go through this book and to come up with some real tangible steps, right? Like, number one, what we did yesterday, I think, is a great first step for people. Turn off your phone, turn off your computer, and go get alone. If you have a business partners, board, whatever, get with that group or the individuals and start thinking about your thinking. The first thing, like what you talked about, was what is your unique ability? If you haven't already done that and stopped and know what that is without a doubt, spend time on that. And then start thinking, well, what does my team have? Who are the people on my team and what are their unique abilities? If they're not working in that, like majority of the time, they're in the wrong spot. I mean, you're never going to 10X if you continue to have people in the wrong spot.
Well, I think that's the enemy there. That's the villain in this scenario. What's keeping us from getting to 10X is that, one, we are doing things that are not within our unique ability, and we have team members that are not doing things within their unique ability.
Right.
We're splitting time.
Right. And another thing I'll mention about even what we did yesterday, you forced me, and I appreciate you doing this. You just started asking me, what would it be like when we do get to 10X? All right, tell me what you're going to do with your time. Where are you going to go? How's that going to look for your family? What's the next thing you'll do? What are you going to be giving to? And you put me in that position by asking those questions.
Ernie, I had him traveling.
Oh, man.
I mean, he was on a safari in Africa. He was showing his children Australia and Queensland. He was definitely not in the office, but maybe 50% of the time. And
I was in Sicily, going to the motherland.
Yeah. I mean, he's looking at Roman ruins. I mean, this guy was all over it. But that is really one of the first steps I see this, is that you have to get honest with yourself. What is your unique ability? And also, what is it that you're going to be doing at that time? One, with your spare time. And two, in your work? What are those activities? Because when we can envision, long ago I did what they call a dream board or goal board. And I just put images because our brain moves in the direction of those things. If you can see it, then we're moving toward it. That's what we have to do. We have to see what we're going to do. In order to see, sometimes we have to close our eyes, right? I mean, I tell my kids all the time, I want to get them to go to bed. Close your eyes. I want you to think about all the fun things that you did today. I want you to think about all the fun things you're going to do tomorrow. They want to open their eyes and say, nope, you got to close your eyes. I want you to imagine going back to those moments or going forward to the moments that are to come. And that's what we have to do within our work too. We have to close our eyes because there's so much distraction. Just like my daughter, Alexandria, distracted up on that block, looking at people all around her, wondering what's going to happen. And so then she defaults to one, starting late, and then two, just, okay, I got to get in the water.
Right. Not maximizing the opportunity.
Yeah.
That's a great
Not
great
simplifying
analogy.
the process.
Yeah. So I think once we actually go through this first step, one, it's a little bit uneasy, right? As adults, we're not always imagining. It seems kind of silly or...
Did you play pretend as a kid, Ernie?
Did I play pretend?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What was your pretend game as a kid?
Me and my brother would go outside and play cowboys and Indians.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, how hard was that? You guys were like off and running. I mean, you're out in the Wild Wild West somewhere, I'm sure.
It was worse for him.
It was the Indian. Yeah. Was your brother the Indian?
I won't say, but somebody ended up tied up multiple times.
Well, but I mean, it's so easy for kids to play pretend. It's really easy.
Dude, my girls are constantly building forts in our basement out of various and sundry furniture items. Things are getting wrecked, but they are playing family. They're playing doctor. They're veterinarians. I mean, they're, got the little baby kitty cat that needs to be whatever taken care of. They're constantly imagining.
And that's the one thing I think as adults that we're taught to get out of fantasy land as if imagination is a bad thing, right? Was it the mathematician Carl Gauss that created some of the most fascinating
mathematical formulas and things?
He found things in math that others didn't find, and he did it from imagination. Like he would just think of, okay, here's a problem. Everybody else is like working hard on it, and he would imagine what it should look like, and he would do it.
Right.
We're taught though as adults, whether it's from, just peer pressure or whatever, that we shouldn't be imagining. But the greatest things we can achieve is through imagination. It's through us figuring out what it should look like and moving in that direction.
Right. So I want to bring it back. So the first step was really thinking through your unique ability and imagining. But the second thing, and I think it became more and more clear, is how important coaching is at that point. We spent one day and we realized doing that, we need to do this a lot more often, right? And you need a coach. You need somebody guiding you directly, challenging you to think about these things on a regular basis, not just every blue moon.
Well, we have multiple coaches that we work with. And this is something that is we're going to sit down with them and we're going to share what came out of yesterday and give them the information that'll help us from their coaching actually take these things into fruition. Because it's not as if we know how to do it. The other day, it's funny that we had Corbett Chandler, from Apex, digital marketer from Apex Current on, and he was talking about how he's able to reach people through Facebook marketing. Well, I got reached, 2 weeks ago. I'm traveling, and so I'm sitting in airports, nothing to do, and so I'm looking through Facebook, and of course, there's a golf, thing on here, how to improve your drive by 30 yards or whatever it is. And I just got finished playing golf, and I was sucking it, and so I was like, okay, I get clicked on to here, and next thing you know, like I'm sucked in. I mean, they are just feeding me stuff. I'm like in their email feed. I'm getting stuff on a constant basis. Well, one of the golf coaches on there, the primary guy, has this great pedigree. Like his dad was a professional coach. He now is a professional coach, but he played professionally as well. Like unbelievable pedigree. And one of the things he was talking about in one of his lessons was how important coaching was in his life. And even his dad, he found out years later, his dad put him with just like the most amazing coaches throughout his life. And he found out that his dad never wanted to teach him. He wanted him to learn from other coaches.
Huh.
And I think there's so often that we get out there on the golf course or in work and we feel like, man, I'm just going to push through.
I can do this.
Like, I'm smart enough. I feel like I can figure this out. And we don't try to ask for wisdom. We don't try to get insight. So that way, when we go out, we fail. And we wonder, well, why are we failing? We don't really know the answer. So I think, yes.
And we're more prone to pull back and just maintain when we should be pushing forward and expanding. Like, that's one of my big takeaways from this is if you're not growing, you're shrinking. So
yeah, I mean,
I think that coach is critical.
Go back to whether you're expanding your work, you're trying to expand your vision for finance. I mean, I had a guy email me yesterday and said, I don't know where the next passive income opportunity is going to come from. I don't think I'm going to have enough money to take advantage of it if it comes through. That's just fear, right? That's
right.
Fear thinking that we're always going to be in the circumstance or position that we're in today. We've got to go, no, how am I going to lead to opportunities? Opportunity is going to come when I start speaking it. Opportunities find cash.
That's right.
Right? The expansion comes when we start figuring out where we're going to be and start literally moving in those directions. And we need insight. We need coaching. I mean,
right.
That's what you and I do with our clients every day is we're coaching them.
That's right. And I think as you're engaging that coach, you're going to be reviewing on a regular basis your expansion. And that's really the next step is constantly expanding and then reviewing, expanding, reviewing. And, he even talks about in the book how that changes your relationships, how that changes your community, the momentum that you have with that. I mean, we can go on and on about this book. I want to encourage everybody to go to his website. We're going to put a link in our show notes. You can buy the book off of there. Encourage you to do it. And then if you also want to take it the next step further, you and I actually need to get together on this. He's got a scorecard that you can download. It challenges you to say, where do you stand right as of now, as far as a 10X mind thought process?
Yeah. Are you feeling like it's an easy process for you? How are you in relationships to communities? How do you embrace technology?
Right.
So a big takeaway is that you realize in order to go 10X that you must embrace technology. You can't have fear in technology.
Right. It's not an option.
No, there's no way to go 10X without technology, without leveraging it.
Right. So, those are great resources you can get right there on our show notes. I want to make sure people have it because ultimately this is about transforming you as an entrepreneur. I know right now you and I are going from a place that we're feeling like overworked and we're getting more free time. Like that's where we're headed towards. We don't want to be limited anymore. We want to get into a place that's limitless.
Yeah, I'm excited about the success that we're going to have at 10X. And I'm excited to think about what 10X is going to look like after that. Because the more people that we're bringing value to in this world, the greater our enjoyment is going to be within it. Seeing people, every time I meet with somebody and they tell me how they've taken over the banking function in their life using these whole life policies, and they're no longer having to go to a bank, or their money is flowing, and the enjoyment they have of knowing that either they already have or they're about to be able to get out of working full time.
The rat race.
Yeah. Those are the things that, make me more passionate about what we're doing. And it helps us avoid failure and staying in our current position. It may be safe potentially to stay where we are, but once we start expanding, action overcomes fear all the time.
Right. And we want you to have the kind of team that is attracted to this kind of movement. I mean, he talks about in the book that you start having people jumping in the boat just because they're excited about somebody that is thinking big, like the vision draws people in.
It's totally true. It goes back to when we talked about the entrepreneur roller coaster and said what was the number one thing that top employees wanted in a job is that they wanted to work with other A players, other excellent people. People are attracted to that and they're going to continue to multiply.
Right. And a vision that they can engage with.
That's
and that they agree
And
with. So
I completely agree with that, what you guys are saying. I was going to bring it up. I'm glad you guys are going there thinking ahead of me, but in the seat that I sit in as a team member, this 10X Mind Expander is huge for the owner, but yes, absolutely for the team member to get engaged in a vision that is going somewhere, isn't just staying status quo. but is pushing out, that provides opportunity to grow as a team member, that is huge.
So I'm going to leave you with this. Just challenge yourself to, one, sit down, get technology and distractions away. Close your eyes if you want to, keep them open. I don't care. But envision where you would be and what the activities you would be doing if you were in 10X. But also, what is your unique ability? And how can you start maximizing that unique ability and stop doing the other things? I think this is going to help you get on the road. So thank you guys for joining in on today's show, Joey, Ernie. And for you listening, as always, please go on to iTunes, give us a review.
Yes.
And we'll see you next
We'd greatly appreciate it. All right.
All right, buddy. Do you think that you have grown in your relationships with other people who are expanding their mind like this now that you've gone through this book?
I am definitely more aware of the people in my life that I need to spend more time around and those that I need to spend less time around, right?
I think of the people that I have found community with is definitely those who are thinking 10X. But it also has pointed me to, okay, well, who else is 10X? Where can I find that person? Where can I build that relationship? How can I expand my network? It goes back to the old idea, you only see the limited viewpoint and where you're at. But the more you see, the more you realize you don't know and you don't see. And so you keep growing and growing and growing. And I think this applies completely to this.
Well, and it puts so much more value on the masterminds and on the networking events and seminars that we should be plugging into. I mean, even this morning we were talking about how it's easy to get scarce about those things. Like, I don't know. It costs money to attend this event or this mastermind or whatever it might be. And rather we're switching the mindset and saying, man, if I get one small nugget out of that, that's a game changer. Like that could be a major difference to my business, my life. It's going to continually help me to grow me, so to speak.
Well, we had a friend of ours, and he told us that the average CEO reads 60 books a year and goes to 6 seminars a year.
Right.
Well, think about that. I mean, 6 seminars a year that you would be attending, you have to be learning. And then you're going to be around other people who want to learn as much as you do. To me, there's value, and I'm willing to spend the money to go to those things. I mean, we were just talking yesterday, the value of going through this other program to help us as we're expanding our business. And initially, sure, we get a little bit scarce in our mindset thinking, it's going to cost $10,000 for us to add this to be able to help us better understand ourselves, better understand our people.
And to grow the team properly.
Yeah, but it makes so much sense. You have to do these things. Well, you don't have to. If you don't, most likely you're not 10X.
That's right.
You want to if you want to expand and you want to grow.
That's right. I'm going to go ahead and just make a segue into next week's episode. Stay tuned. This is going to blow your mind, right? We are meeting with Jamie Reynolds, who is the mastermind behind Iron City Cattle Company. You've heard about us talk about that before, me running after Anvil, our bull, and all these various things. But Jamie is going to talk about how to turn your hobby, things that you're passionate about, things that you love to decompress and do outside of your business, and how to make those into a business.
Yeah, and how to use technology and leverage other things so that you can 10X your hobby, 10X your enjoyment of your hobby, and also 10X the opportunity that can come from it too. So
and make it passive, by the way.
That's right. So listen in to just a piece of next week's. Joey and I at that cattle auction last fall, I mean, did we look like two people that fit right in, or did everybody know?
My favorite part, my wife goes with me sometimes. She doesn't make all of them, but she wanted to go to this one because we knew we had a large purchase we were planning to go to this auction to make. And Araya lost focus on watching the cattle and the auctioneer, and she went to Russ watching. She's like, look at his face. When this auctioneer is wide open and in the zone, he's like, we see Russ like looking at other people to say, am I the only one that's hearing this?
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.